C3 glomerulopathy is an ultra-rare disease that's really triggered by underlying complement dysregulation. I think not a lot of physicians will have seen patients, or they've seen very few patients, but really the bottom line is that care for that disease is guided towards expert guidance, not randomized controlled trials. And unfortunately, still up to 50% or more of patients go to end stage by 10 years after their diagnosis. So you can see very significant need for there to be not only randomized controlled trials, but also efficacious medications. So the underlying cause of C3 glomerulopathy is presumed to be alternative pathway dysregulation. And so up to this point, we've not had a way to target that area or that part of the complement system. The exciting news that came out at ASN this year was the fact that we now have 2 randomized controlled trials that target the alternative pathway of complement. And based on animal models, they are suggested to be exactly what we need in this disease. So that's the exciting part. Both of these drugs are alternative pathway inhibitors, if you will. Yeah, so the Apellis study is the, I'll say, older one, if you will. This is the one that we were given the 12-month data on. So this is a group of patients that were actually, it was a placebo-controlled trial for the first 6 months. Then everyone moved into the treatment group, including those placebo patients. And so the report out at ASN this year, this season or this year was actually the 12-month data. So the critical aspects of that is, first of all, they were able to reproduce that they did have significant urine protein reduction, which is believed to be critical in C3G. But also importantly, we now also know not only was it safe at 6 months, but it's also safe at 12 months. The other exciting part about that particular study was they had the foresight to collect the 2 years worth of kidney function prior to actually being exposed to the medication, and they could see a very clear difference in the slope, the downward slope towards end stage pre-treatment, which essentially completely leveled off post-treatment, both in the initial 6-month treatment arm, but then also in the placebo patients that then moved over into treatment. That was a phenomenon that was seen in both. So exciting that we saw proteinuria reduction, we saw stabilization, even improvement in the GFR slope, and then finally, now we know it's safe, which is a critical aspect of being able to move towards these medications. Yeah, so this is the newer kid on the block, so to speak, in terms of this is the trial that has just recently gone through its 6-month data. So that's what was presented at ASN. And in fact, they had a very nice improvement in urine protein, so a 68.3% improvement in urine protein over the placebo group. The slightly unique aspect of this study is that this was a broader or a basket trial, meaning it included C3G, immune complex MPGN, it included native kidney, it included transplant patients, and also importantly for me, that who also practices pediatric nephrology, it included children, so it included patients down to the age of 12. The Apellis study is also doing this. It's just that this is the first time to get a look at the children, if you will. Yeah, so the exciting part about this is, as I mentioned, that these are targeted therapeutics, meaning they in theory have the capability of actually shutting off disease activity, which would be wonderful for this group of patients. That slope towards end stage, we're hoping that changes dramatically once one of these agents can be used. And you're potentially you're right that the Novartis will actually make it to market faster. And certainly there will be patients that will prefer this medication because it's an oral medication, and it's got the safety safety data that was already mentioned in this C3G group. So, but similarly, I'm sure that the Apellis agent will make its way to the market here fairly soon too. The important aspect, frankly, is the targeted piece, but maybe the most challenging aspect will be how are we going to use these? And so we have expert guidance on what we should do to treat these patients. We need to know now if the expert guidance will tell us that these agents should be used initially or as backup therapy or as second line therapy, if you will. So there's a number of how do we use these agents. And then finally, I would say we also, we're quite pleased by both of the trials showing good safety data. There was a time in our kidney lives when we thought that using complement inhibitors would be problematic as far as risk for infection, but both of these studies have suggested that they are going to be safe to use, but there are still going to be some loose ends. We have to decide who do we vaccinate, when do we vaccinate, who do we use antibiotics on, et cetera. So there's a number of loose ends, but nothing at all that can't be handled. And certainly is the balance has been tipped towards being able to finally be able to treat these patients.